Leah Harper had always chased stories the way other people chased sunsets, fiercely without apology, letting them burn her fingers. At 25, she'd packed a single duffel bag and fled the gray drizzle of Seattle for the sun-baked coast of Catalonia, convinced that Spain would rewrite her into something bolder, braver. Barcelona's Gothic quarter became her playground, its narrow alleys whispering secrets of forbidden loves and artists gone mad. That's where she met Morgan Ellis, in a cramped tapas bar off La Rambla, where the air hung heavy with garlic and the tang of sangria. Morgan was 30 then, an American expat with a trust fund that bought her a villa in Sitges and a Rolodex full of literary agents back home. She had that effortless poise, the kind that made waiters linger and strangers spill their guts, like she'd been born with a silver fountain pen in her hand. Leah spotted her first. Auburn hair cropped short like a 1920s flapper, blue eyes that could pin you like a butterfly to corkboard, and a laugh that cut through the chatter like a jazz saxophone. Morgan was nursing a glass of Tempranillo, scribbling notes in a leather-bound journal, her lips pursed in that way that said she was dissecting the world and finding it wanting. "You write like you're afraid of your own shadow," Morgan said later that night, after Leah had mustered the courage to slide onto the stool beside her and babble about her half-finished novel, a messy thing about a woman unraveling in the Pacific Northwest. It wasn't a compliment, but it hooked Leah deeper than any praise could. Morgan's voice was low, smoky, laced with that East Coast clip that screamed Ivy League summers in the Hamptons. She leaned in, her perfume a subtle mix of jasmine and old books, and added, "But there's fire there. Let me show you how to let it breathe." They talked until the bar shuttered its doors, spilling out onto the cobblestones where the Mediterranean breeze carried the faint salt of the sea. Morgan walked Leah to her hostel, their shoulders brushing in the humid night, and by the time they reached the peeling blue door, Leah felt exposed, seen in a way that terrified and thrilled her. "Come to my place tomorrow," Morgan said, slipping a card into Leah's hand, embossed with her name and the title freelance editor and literary consultant. It wasn't an invitation, it was a command wrapped in velvet. The villa in Sitges was a revelation. Whitewashed walls draped in bougainvillea, an infinity pool that blurred into the horizon, and a library stacked floor to ceiling with first editions, Wolfe, Baldwin, all the queer saints who'd carved paths through the wilderness of words. Morgan edited Leah's chapters with surgical precision, her red pen slashing like a lover's nails. "Darling, this protagonist cowers. Make her claw." They'd work late into the afternoons, breaking only for plates of paella on the terrace, the sun dipping low over the Costa Brava cliffs. And then, inevitably, the air would thicken, charged like the moments before a thunderstorm. It started with a brush of fingers over a shared manuscript, Morgan's hand lingering on Leah's wrist, her thumb tracing the pulse point there. "You're trembling," she murmured, her breath warm against Leah's ear. Leah's response was a nod, a surrender, and suddenly they were kissing, fierce, unpracticed on Leah's part, masterful on Morgan's. It was Leah's first real taste of desire that didn't come with caveats, the kind that made her body hum like a live wire. They tumbled into the library, books scattering like fallen leaves, Morgan's hands mapping Leah's skin with the same intent she applied to prose, claiming, refining, possessing. Those months blurred into a haze of salt-kissed mornings and starlit confessions. Morgan taught Leah everything: how to structure a plot twist, how to kiss with intent, how to navigate the labyrinth of her own heart. They drove the winding roads to Kadax, Dolly's ghost town, where they'd picnic on cliffs and read passages aloud, their voices intertwining like vines. "You're mine to shape," Morgan would whisper during their quietest moments, her fingers weaving through Leah's chestnut curls. It felt like destiny then, like Leah had been adrift until Morgan's steady hand on the tiller. But control has a way of creeping in like fog off the sea. At first it was subtle. Morgan suggesting Leah cut ties with her old writing group back home. "They're amateurs, love, they'll dilute you." Then it was the wardrobe. "That thrift store rag doesn't suit you. Try this." A silk scarf from a boutique in Barcelona, paid for with Morgan's black card. Leah wore it like a collar, proud at first, then chafed. Morgan's edits grew sharper, her critiques laced with barbs. "This scene's indulgent, self-pity disguised as vulnerability. Rewrite it or it's worthless." Leah would toil through the night, her confidence fraying like the edges of her notebooks. They fought in whispers at first, Reconciliation sealed with make-up sex that left Leah breathless and begging for more. But the arguments escalated, voices rising over the crash of waves below the villa. "You think you can fix me?" Leah hurled one evening, after Morgan had vetoed an entire chapter for being too raw, too autobiographical. Morgan's eyes flashed, cold as steel. "I'm not fixing you, I'm elevating you. Without me, you're just another scribbler with dreams too big for her britches." The breaking point came in a rented Fiat, barreling down the AP7 toward Valencia for a literary festival where Morgan had secured Leah a reading slot, as her protégée. The sun was a merciless orb, baking the leather seats, when Morgan glanced at the passenger side mirror and snapped, "God, Leah, that hair, it's a mess. Pull over. I'll fix it." It was the hairpin turn after that word, fix, that unleashed it. Leah swerved onto the shoulder, gravel spitting like accusations. "I'm not your project, Morgan. I'm a person." Morgan's laugh was brittle, her hand reaching to cup Leah's cheek. "Of course you are. My person." But the touch felt like chains and Leah recoiled, the car idling like a held breath. "I need space," she said, voice cracking. "Just a night. Alone." Morgan's face crumpled, a rare vulnerability cracking her facade. "Don't do this. We're so close to something real." Leah drove on in silence, dropping Morgan at the hotel before vanishing into the labyrinthine streets of Valencia's old town. She holed up in a pension with thin walls and a view of the Turia Gardens, scribbling feverishly until dawn. The reading the next day was a triumph on paper, Leah's voice steady as she poured out her revised words. But Morgan's eyes from the front row were daggers, proud yet possessive. That night, over a forced dinner of fidua, Morgan slid a contract across the table. An offer to co-author a book, her name above Leah's. "Partners," she said, her smile a lure. "Equals." Leah signed it in the haze of red wine and regret, but the ink felt like a noose. 2 weeks later, back in Sidges, she found the emails, dozens from Morgan to agents, pitching our manuscript as her vision, Leah as the talented voice I discovered. The betrayal stung like sea salt in a wound. She packed under cover of night, leaving only a note on the kitchen island. "I'm not your discovery. I'm my own storm." The flight to New York was a blur of tears and turbulence, depositing Leah in the gritty embrace of Brooklyn. She crashed on a friend's futon in Williamsburg, waitressing by day and writing under the cover of anonymity by night. LH. She called herself in online forums and indie lit mags, short, sharp, untraceable. Her stories poured out raw and unfiltered. Women breaking free, loves that choked like kudzu. They resonated, building a quiet cult following. By 28, she'd self-published a chapbook that sold out 3 print runs, all under that pseudonym. Brooklyn became her fortress. Dive bars in Bushwick, poetry slams in Bed-Stuy. The endless hum of the L train lulling her to uneasy sleep. She avoided Spain like a scar, but the ghosts followed. Morgan's face in every sharp-featured woman at a reading. Her voice in every editorial note from strangers. Leah dated. Flings with baristas and fellow writers, soft and safe, but nothing stuck. Her heart was a locked attic, dusted but unopened. 5 years passed in that rhythm. Ink in isolation. Then the email arrived, innocuous in her inbox amid rejection slips and fan mail. Subject: Invitation to submit. From the desk of Morgan Ellis, senior editor at Willow Press. Leah's coffee mug slipped from her fingers, shattering on the scarred hardwood of her Greenpoint apartment. Willow Press was indie royalty, championing queer voices, headquartered in a Chelsea loft with views of the Hudson. And Morgan, her Morgan, was now senior editor? The body of the email was crisp, professional. Praise for LH's incisive, unflinching prose. An open call for a full manuscript. No hint of recognition. No scent of the jasmine that once clung to her skin. Leah stared at the screen until her eyes burned, the cursor blinking like a dare. She could ignore it, let the past calcify. Or she could submit. The storm within, her novel in progress, the one that bled Spain onto every page. It was catharsis, confrontation wrapped in fiction. With trembling fingers she hit send. The acceptance came 2 months later. Over lunch at a Soho cafe that reeked of overpriced avocado toast. Morgan arrived 5 minutes early. Impeccable in a cashmere sweater and pearls, her auburn hair now softened with subtle highlights. Leah had chosen a corner booth, hood up like armor, But Morgan's eyes locked on her the instant she crossed the threshold. Recognition dawned slow, then bloomed like a bruise. "Leah," she breathed, sliding into the seat opposite. No Harper, no distance, just her name like a key turning in a rusted lock. God, it's you." Leah's throat tightened, the years collapsing into that single syllable. "Senior editor suits you," she managed, her voice steadier than she felt. "Didn't expect the prodigal to pitch to the wolf." Morgan's smile was a tightrope, charming, wounded. "I followed your work. Incognito, of course. It's brilliant. Haunting." She reached across the table, hesitating before withdrawing. "This could be our chance. To collaborate. Properly this time." The words hung there, laced with subtext. Redemption, rewrite, reclaim. Leah's pulse thrummed, a mix of fury and that old treacherous pull. "It's not our anything," she said, but the contract was already in her bag and signed. As they parted on the sidewalk, Morgan's hand grazed her elbow, electric, uninvited. "Read the edits. Then decide." Back in Brooklyn, the manuscript arrived FedExed. Red ink bleeding across the pages like old wounds reopened. Morgan's notes were masterful as always, tightening rhythms, amplifying echoes of their shared past. But woven in were margins, whispers. "This reminds me of us in Valencia, fiercer. You've grown into your storm." It was seduction by scalpel, and Leah hated how it stirred her. Weeks turned to months of revisions, emails evolving from clip to confessional, late-night calls where Morgan's voice softened, admitting the villa's emptiness after Leah left, the string of lovers who paled in comparison. "I was scared," she confessed one midnight, the city lights flickering through Leah's window. "Of losing control. Of you being more than I could hold." Leah listened, curled on her thrift store couch, the skyline a jagged comfort. "You didn't lose me, you caged me." But forgiveness flickered, a candle in drafty halls. They met for working dinners, first at Neutral Ground, a vegan spot in the village, then braver, Morgan's Upper West Side walk-up, all exposed brick and first editions. One evening, as snow dusted the fire escape, Morgan poured 2 glasses of that same Tempranillo. "I never stopped loving you," she said, eyes glistening. Leah's resolve cracked. She crossed the room, their kiss tentative at first, then deepening like a plot twist she'd long anticipated. It was softer than Sidge's, no possession, just presence. They spent the night talking, bodies entwined but boundaries intact, rebuilding on ruins. Spring thawed Brooklyn's edges, cherry blossoms rioting along the promenade. But Leah's world tilted on the axis of Morgan's return. Their collaboration bloomed. The storm within sharpened into a debut that Willow Press fast-tracked for fall release. Publicity photos, author bios. LH unveiled as Leah Harper, with a subtle nod to her editorial partner Morgan Ellis. Whispers in the lit scene buzzed. "Is there something there?" Leah felt exposed, alive, the pseudonym shed like snakeskin. Morgan, too, softened at the seams. Gone was the villa's iron grip. In its place, gestures small and seismic. Playlists of Nina Simone for writing sprints, weekend escapes to the Catskills where they'd hike without agendas, just the crunch of leaves and shared silences. "Equality looks good on you," Leah teased one afternoon, as Morgan deferred to her on a plot pivot. Morgan's grin was boyish, unguarded. "Tastes better, too." But shadows lingered, ink stains that wouldn't fade. Leah's therapist, a no-nonsense dyke from Crown Heights, prodded gently. "Control isn't a switch, Leah. It's a spectrum. What's her endgame now?" Leah brushed it off, but doubts gnawed. Morgan's calendar filled with acquisitions meetings, power lunches with Manhattan tastemakers, while Leah's days blurred in her Greenpoint garret, tweaking blurbs and dodging paparazzi-light interest from the cut. The power imbalance echoed, subtler now, Morgan's suggestions phrased as insights, her schedule dictating their rendezvous. The first fracture came in June, at a pre-launch reading in a packed Brooklyn bookstore. McNally Jackson, fairy lights strung like constellations. Leah read from the terrace scene, her voice steady as she evoked the Costa Brava's cliffs, the plea hanging in the salt air. The crowd, queer writers, bookish millennials, leaned in rapt. Morgan sat front row, her applause thunderous, but backstage, her embrace turned possessive. "You nailed it. But next time, lean into the vulnerability more. Let them see the break." Leah pulled back, the green room's air thick with craft beer and cologne. "It was vulnerable, Morgan. My words, my story. Morgan's brow furrowed, that old flash of impatience. I know, but I'm thinking commercially. Willow's invested, we're invested. The we landed like a stone in still water. That night, over takeout in Morgan's apartment, Leah confronted it. This feels like Sidge's 2.0. Your vision overlaying mine. Morgan set down her chopsticks, eyes wide with hurt. That's not fair. I've changed. We're equals now, partners. Partners. Leah echoed, the word tasting of contracts and cliffs. She stormed out into the humid night, hailing a car back to Brooklyn, the skyline mocking her with its indifferent glitter. Days passed in radio silence, Leah channeling rage into a short story for Granta. A tale of a writer haunted by her own editor, sharp and unflinching. It went viral in lit Twitter, accolades pouring in, but each ping felt like shrapnel. Morgan broke the ice with flowers, wild roses, not the hothouse variety, and a handwritten apology on willow letterhead. I overstepped. Your voice is the thunder. I'm just the echo. Forgive me? Dinner neutral ground. Leah relented, drawn by the vulnerability, the promise of repair. They met at a quiet Italian in Cobble Hill, candlelight softening the edges. Morgan arrived with a bottle of Albarino, the Spanish white that had baptized their first night. To new chapters, she toasted, clinking glasses. The evening unfurled like a well-paced scene. Laughter over shared anecdotes, Morgan recounting a disastrous date with a poet who rhymed soul with bowl. Leah felt the pull again, that magnetic orbit. As they walked the blocks to the subway, Morgan's hand found hers, tentative. I don't want to lose you twice. Leah squeezed back, whispering. Then don't try to rewrite me. Summer deepened, their rhythm sinking. Mornings at Leah's, coffee brewed strong while Morgan read proofs aloud. Evenings at industry parties where they'd navigate schmoozers as a unit, Leah's arm looped through Morgan's. The book tour loomed. A cross-country jaunt, starting in San Francisco, looping through Austin, ending in Miami. Our victory lap, Morgan called it, booking adjoining suites for convenience. Leah hesitated, the intimacy a siren call laced with caution. But excitement won. She packed sundresses and signings, the manuscripts launch a launchpad for her career. Departure day, JFK buzzed with harried travelers, but Morgan met her at the gate with mimosas in to-go cups. To storms conquered, she murmured, kissing Leah's temple. San Francisco was fog-kissed magic. Readings at City Lights, where Ferlinghetti's ghost nodded approval. Crowds adored Leah's raw honesty, the queer undercurrents that pulsed like heartbeats. Morgan hovered, ever the polished counterpart, introducing donors, fielding reviews. One night, post-event in a Haight-Ashbury bar, buzzed on anchor steam, a fan cornered Leah. That editor of yours, does she get to boss the ending? The joke landed wrong, dredging old silt. Leah laughed it off, but later in the hotel bar, she voiced it. People see us as, what? Creator and curator. Morgan's eyes darkened over her gin. Let them. It's their narrative. But the defensiveness stung. A reminder of Valencia's hairpin. They argued quietly, Leah accusing projection, Morgan pleading pragmatism, ending in a tense elevator ride, doors closing on unspoken fractures. Austin healed it, or seemed to. Barbecue joints and bat-watching under Congress Avenue Bridge. Morgan's hand in Leah's as they marveled at the leathery exodus. This is us, Morgan said, voice thick. Wing-free. They made love that night, slow, reverent, boundaries blurring into trust. Leah woke to sunlight slanting through gauzy curtains, Morgan's auburn head on her chest, and thought, maybe redemption is possible. But Miami cracked it wide. The tour's crescendo. A glitzy launch at Books and Books, Coral Gables palms swaying like applause. The room swelled with influencers, critics, a who's who of Florida's lit scene. Leah shone, her reading electric, but Morgan's speech stole breath. Leah Harper isn't just a voice. She's a force I had the privilege to amplify. Our collaboration. It's the heart of this book. The word boomeranged, applause masking Leah's unease. Post-party in the hotel suite overlooking Biscayne Bay, champagne fizzing forgotten, Leah confronted it. You said, our collaboration. As if I needed saving. Morgan, tipsy and defiant, shot back. You did back then. And now? We're building something. Why fight it? The fight escalated, voices ricocheting off mirrored walls. Because it's my book, Morgan. My storm. Leah shouted, tears hot. Morgan's face twisted, hurt morphing to fury. And who got you here? Who believed when you were scribbling in hostels? The slap of truth landed, but worse was what followed. In the heat, Morgan's phone buzzed, screen lighting a name: Elena, agent. A text preview: drinks? Your pitch on the Discovered Talent sequel was gold. Leah froze, the pieces slotting. Morgan pitching her as the muse again. You're doing it, she whispered, voice hollow. Shopping me like a find. Morgan stammered denials, but the evidence scrolled. Emails framing Leah as the raw gem I polished. Betrayal round 2, sharper for the veneer of change. Leah fled at dawn, cab to the airport, boarding an early flight to JFK. The sky wept tropical tears mirroring her own. Back in Brooklyn, she ghosted Morgan's calls, barricading in her apartment with takeout and a bottle of bourbon. The book soared, reviews in NYT Guardian calling it a queer odyssey of self-reclamation. But triumph tasted ashen. Friends rallied. Brunches in Dumbo, where baristas named Riley flirted with bat tattoos and better intentions. You're free now, they said. Leah nodded, but freedom felt like fallout. Morgan's olive branch arrived a week later. A package, no return address. Inside. The original Sige's note creased and yellowed beside a galleys of the storm within, but with Morgan's byline struck through, red pen emphatic. Leah's alone. As it should be. A letter followed. I lied to protect us, from them, from me. But I see now. Your wings were never mine to clip. Publish without me. Love always. Leah wept then, the kind of ugly sobs that purge. She didn't respond, but forwarded the galleys to Willow, demanding the byline purge. It stuck, controversy brewing, but on her terms. The fallout rippled. Lit hub op-eds on editorial overreach and queer lit. Panels where Leah spoke on autonomy, her voice a beacon. Yet the hollow persisted. One October evening, leaves skittering like confessions, Leah wandered to the Brooklyn Museum. An exhibit on Dali's surreal lovers pulling her in. There, amid melting clocks and impossible dreams, she spotted Auburn across the room. Morgan alone, staring at a canvas of entwined figures. Their eyes met, the gallery's hush amplifying the ache. No words at first, just approach tentative. It was beautiful, Morgan said softly, gesturing to the painting. Like what we almost had. Leah's throat bobbed. What we did have. The good and the ruin. They talked then, halting, honest, over coffee in the cafe, Morgan owning her patterns. Control was my armor. Against abandonment, against feeling small. Leah shared hers. Fear of fading. Of needing anyone. As dusk fell, painting the East River in bruised purples, they walked the grounds. Friends.
Morgane Venture, tentative.
Leah considered, the weight lifting like fog. Start there. See where the story goes. Winter clamped Brooklyn in its iron grip, holiday lights twinkling like defiant stars against the cold. Leah and Morgan's friendship was a delicate architecture. Coffee catch-ups in neutral cafes, texts parsing industry gossip, silences that spoke of healing scars. No touches, no overnights. Just the slow thaw of trust. Leah's star ascended. The storm within hit bestseller lists. Her TEDx talk on writing as unshackling going viral among queer creatives. Invites flooded, festivals in Provincetown, residencies in Marfa. But she carved space for herself, a Brooklyn brownstone purchase sealing her roots. Morgan, meanwhile, navigated Willow's tempests. The byline scandal birthed policy shifts, her role evolving to mentor rather than mold. She dated, a painter from Red Hook, casual and light, but her eyes lingered on Leah in group settings, a quiet longing. Leah noticed, felt the echo, but held boundaries like talismans. We're good like this, she'd say, and mean it, the freedom a quiet joy. Spring brought Spain's siren call. A literary conference in Barcelona. Panel on expat narratives in global lit. Leah was keynoting. Morgan moderating a breakout. Come. The email read from a shared contact. Face the ghosts together. Leah hesitated, the Costa Brava's cliffs rising in dreams, but booked the flight. Confrontation as closure. Barcelona enveloped them like an old lover, wisteria blooming in the eyes ample, the Gothic quarters alleys unchanged. They arrived separately but synced at the hotel. A boutique spot off Passeig de Gracia. Rooms adjoining by chance or design. To old wounds. Morgan toasted that first night, cava bubbling. Leah clinked. And new skins. The conference hummed. Panels on diaspora, queer invisibility, Leah's keynote a masterclass in vulnerability. Stories aren't salvations, they're mirrors. Morgan's eyes from the wings. Proud, unpossessive. Evenings they wandered. Tapas at the same bar where it began, laughter freer now, laced with hindsight. I was such a prick, Morgan admitted over patatas bravas, her laugh self-deprecating. Thought love was a contract. Leah swirled her wine, the Tempranillo's warmth steadying. And I was clay waiting for hands. But we both learned to fire the kiln. It was the closest to absolution. The past reframed not as prison but forge. The real unraveling came mid-conference. A free day they claimed for Sidges. The train rattled south, sea glimpses teasing, tension coiling like the tracks. Morgan's villa sold years back, but they walked its ghost. The white walls now a rental bougainvillea overgrown. On the terrace, that terrace. Overlooking cliffs where waves gnashed eternally, the air thickened. I kept the library, Morgan confessed, voice small. Shipped it home. Wolf's Mrs. Dalloway still has your coffee stain. Leah's chest ached, memory flooding. Scattered pages, urgent kisses. Why bring me here? She asked, not accusing, just bare. Morgan turned, blue eyes sea deep. To say goodbye to her, to us the version that hurt. And hello to whatever this is. She stepped closer, not touching, but the space hummed. Leah's breath caught, the pull inexorable. What if it's enough? She whispered. Just us as we are. The kiss, when it came, was inevitable. A slow unfurling, salt-tanged and sun-warmed. No rush, no claim. Just presence, bodies remembering rhythms long dormant. They didn't tumble inside. Stayed on the terrace, hands tracing collarbones, whispers weaving futures. Equals, Morgan murmured against Leah's neck. Always from now. But drama, that American export, had one last twist. Back in Barcelona, post-climax glow fading, Leah's phone buzzed. An email from Willow's HR, CC'd to Morgan. Review of editorial practices. Allegations of past misconduct. Anonymous tip. Screenshots of those old pitches. Elena's texts resurfaced. A junior editor, perhaps burned by Morgan's old style. Or a rival sniffing blood. Panic flared. Morgan's face ashen in the hotel lobby. Leah's hand instinctive on her arm. It's nothing, Leah lied. But the storm gathered. Press inquiries, Twitter threads dissecting their history. Conference buzz turned toxic. Whispers of power imbalances. Leah cast as victim or enabler. She fielded calls from her agent, therapist on speed dial, while Morgan retreated, drafting statements that rang hollow. The climax crested that final night, in a rooftop bar overlooking the Sagrada Familia's spires. Gaudia's unfinished dream mirroring their own. Rain lashed sudden, driving them under cover, the city a watercolor blur. I can't lose this, Morgan said, voice breaking, rain streaking her makeup. Not you, not again. But if it costs your truth. Leah pulled her close, the downpour a baptism. It won't. We'll face it, together but separate. Your mess, my voice. They strategized till dawn. Morgan's public apology, Leah's op-ed for The Atlantic. On loving and letting go. A writer's reckoning. No cover-up. Radical honesty, the queer-lit world's ultimate plot twist. The flight home was quiet solidarity. Hands clasped across armrests, no promises, just possibility. Brooklyn welcomed them crisp and claiming. Leah's brownstone now a haven with a study overlooking the bridge. Morgan's visits tentative, then routine. The scandal simmered, then sparked change. Willow's ethics training, mentorship programs for emerging voices. Morgan stepped back from acquisitions, focusing on coaching. Leah mentored at local workshops, her anonym days a fond footnote. Summer solstice found them on Leah's fire escape. Fireflies winking like errant muses. A bottle of Albarino between. To storms, Leah toasted, echoing Valencia. Morgan smiled, softer now, lines of laughter etching her eyes. And the women who weather them. Their love rebuilt brick by patient brick. No contracts, just consent. Edits as dialogue, not decree. Dates to Coney Island, cotton candy dissolving on tongues. Quiet nights where Morgan read Leah's new drafts aloud, pausing for kisses instead of critiques. It wasn't flawless. Arguments flared, old triggers tripped, but apologies came swift, growth the glue. By fall, Leah's second book brewed. A mosaic of returns, redemptions dedicated simply for M. Who taught me to edit myself? Morgan's response. A first edition of Baldwin's Giovanni's Room inscribed to L. Who showed me freedom's face. In the end it was human, achingly so. Two women scarred and soaring, writing their narrative not in isolation but intersection. Brooklyn's pulse thrummed approval. The skyline a testament to persistence. And somewhere across the Atlantic, the Costa Brava cliff stood sentinel, whispering that some stories circle back, not to trap but to set free.